morning, church. Warm welcome to everyone this morning. Always an honor for me to be here. This morning's lesson, as you can see, is called Traffic Lights, or Traffic Light. I was thinking about entitling it Robots, but I thought people in Australia probably wouldn't know what I'm talking about. So robot, for those of you who didn't get that, is what South Africans call traffic light because it's easier to spell. So traffic light. For those of you who don't know what a traffic light is, and hopefully that is only people that do not have a traffic light, it is a thing that you see in the most busy intersections that's generally got three lights. In fact, I've never seen one with more than three lights. Red, amber, and green. And of course, red means you do not go. Amber means you go if you're speeding. No, amber means you slow down. And green means, well, yeah, green means go. Green means go. Now, when you go through a red traffic light and there are policemen around, generally that's the result. You get pulled over. If there's a camera behind you or on the traffic light, you'll see a flash. And I don't know whether that's better or worse than being pulled over. Now, on Tuesday morning, I was praying and I knew I was doing this morning's lesson, and I thought to myself, well, I didn't think to myself. Well, I was thinking to myself as well, but I was praying and I said, Lord, please help me. And I do it all the time. I try and do the right thing. And I said, God, please help me come up with what do I want to preach? What do I need to preach on Sunday? What should I be talking on? What's a good lesson? And I generally have my way of coming up with lessons. And so I thought, okay, well, just follow the process. And on my way to work, I cycled into work. I was coming down Hepburn Avenue, which is this main street here. And from where I live, I cross Wanneroo. Now at about 5:30 in the morning, that traffic light always allows for the Wanneroo traffic. It only ever changes if someone presses the pedestrian button or if a car stops on the sensor and Hepburn, and then it changes, literally flicks to green for about 3 or 4 seconds. Like it is just enough time for the car to go through the traffic light. And at that time of the morning when I'm going, generally from when the car sees the green light, accelerates, by the time it's got to the other end, the traffic light's already turned amber. So that's how quick it is in the morning. So I was coming down the hill, and generally I can see what the traffic's going to be doing because I can see the cars going. It's dark, so I can see the lights. I don't have to see the car. I can see the lights approaching. I can see whether or not there's a car stopped there, so I already know as I'm coming to it, is it going to be changing green for me or not? And I'd say 98% of mornings I get there and I have to push the button and wait for it to change, and then I go across on the change. This morning, on this Tuesday morning, after I'd asked God for guidance on what to preach for, I was coming down and I saw all the stars were aligning. I almost never catch that traffic light green, but I thought, this is going to be the 2 in 100 times that I go down this road, I'm going to catch the traffic light green. And so I started pedaling faster. The light changed a little bit earlier than what I thought. The car had gotten across, hadn't got there yet, flicked to amber, and so I was left with the decision. Do I now slam on anchors at 40 kilometers an hour plus minus? It's downhill, I'm not that good a cyclist. Or do I just go through, like there's a 50-50 chance I'm going to make the amber light. And about 2 meters from the line, I got the red. And I did not slam on anchors. I went straight through. So I went through a red traffic light. And I wasn't the only one that observed all of this, because about 3 seconds later, I heard the sirens come on. And I thought to myself, you must be kidding me. So I pulled over and the cop says to me, do you know what you did? So I said, yes, I hit the red less than half a second after it turned red. And he said, so why did you do it? So I said, well, I've said to him everything I just said to you pretty much. It's like 5:30 in the morning. There's no cars there. I knew I was going to get it like this. I had decided beforehand. that I was going to go, I was going to push, and I missed it. And he said, yes, but it's unsafe and all the rest of those things. And he told me, he gave me a ticket. I haven't got the ticket yet, but I'm waiting for it patiently in the post. And I did use my opportunity. I was quite impressed with myself, as ashamed as what I am that I went through a red traffic light. I didn't get upset with the traffic cop. And I just said to him, well, after he told me I got the fine, so I wasn't trying to butter him up. I said to him, listen, I really appreciate what you guys do, but I really believe this was petty. And he just said, well, I'm sorry, and have a good day. So I said, thank you, and I had a good day. And I thought, dear God, could you not have provided a cheaper way for me to get Sunday morning's lesson? Seriously. But I thought about it quite a lot, obviously going to work, the whole thing playing in my mind, thinking to myself, do I have the courage to tell an entire group of people that I call my Christian brethren that I went through a red traffic light, that I got pulled over by the police, that I probably got a fine for going through a red traffic light? I started thinking about things like, well, am I going to fight this? Am I going to say, in 15 years in Australia, in fact, never in Australia I've been pulled over by a cop. Never in Australia have I actually gotten a fine that I deserve. And I say that I deserve for two reasons, because one, I've got two fines in Australia. One, while Shan was driving, and I got the photo to prove that. And two, because I was at a traffic light where the red arrow was on, and I decided, I actually need to go straight. So I went out of the lane to go straight through the green traffic light, but I was too close to the sensor and the camera took the photo. So ironically, I got another fine for going through a red traffic light, even though I didn't actually go through a red traffic light. But that was a camera, so I wasn't going to bother arguing. Anyways, so the point of the matter is, I've never gotten a fine. I've never gotten a single speed fine. In fact, I take great pleasure in telling my mom every time she phones me up and says, there's a speed camera here. I take great pleasure in saying, I don't care. I don't speed. There can be a speed camera anywhere. It's not going to catch me because I don't speed. And I don't speed. Like I said, I've never, ever been pulled over before, never gotten a fine in Australia. So what do I do now that I've been through a red traffic light? Do I fight? Do I say, listen, it was less than half a second? And I thought to myself, well, how red is red? I went through a red traffic light. What am I going to say? Dear Mr. LaRue, you say you want to get off. Why do you want to get off? Because it wasn't red that long? I agree. All right, red is red. I went through a red traffic light. And so it got me thinking about this idea of sin. In fact, I just finished a 1-week-long devotional book about what is temptation. How do you avoid temptation? And it had not quite thrown up a framework exactly like this, but very, very similar. And it gave me the idea of this to draw up this framework at least. And I thought of Ivan. I was inspired by Ivan. Ivan loves his workflows. I can't see you now to catch your eye, but Ivan always has workflows. And I thought this is a great opportunity for me to copy Ivan with a workflow. But this is roughly the framework that he's laid out for us in James chapter 1 about temptation. There is desire. There is the temptation or the enticement based on that desire. There is the truth or the lie that you tell yourself. And then there's the result when you believe the truth or the lie. So let me give you an example of that at first may seem a bit contrary to what we're talking about here and what James is talking about. Let's say I have the desire to be kind. Well, that's not a bad desire to have. That's a good desire. The temptation there is when you see someone in need and you want to be kind, you're tempted to help them. You're enticed to help them. Well, that's a good thing. That's a green light. Go for it. That's a go. What's the truth or the lie? The truth in this instance is that you will feel fulfilled. You'll feel the sense of fulfillment, accomplishment, maybe, encouragement, definitely. And there is the truth that God rewards those who are kind. God is a giver. And I do not in any way, sense, shape, or form mean this gospel of prosperity. I mean, God will reward you. In this life or the next, the truth is you will be rewarded. In this instance, it's a truth. It's God's truth. And the result is absolutely a sense of fulfillment that cannot be taken away from you. That's what happens when you succumb, if you will, for now, if you'll allow me, indulge me in that, succumb to this temptation to do God's will. It's green light all the way. But what happens when you want to make the most of your time, when you want to be efficient, when you want to get to work 30 seconds, yes, 30 seconds in an hour earlier? You see a shortcut, you see an opportunity to maybe beat that amber light. What's the lie that you tell yourself? You're going to have more time. That's a lie. That is not truth. You think you're going to have more time. You think you're going to have that 30 seconds, but you're not. It's the same as maybe getting off a train station. I know I've used this analogy before many years ago when I was still using public transport, and I used to work like 600 meters from the Leederville train station, and a lot of people that work in Perth get off at Leederville, and you watch them walking past the tap and go, and you know that they don't have tickets because you've caught the train every day. You see where they get on. You see that they don't tap and go. You see that they don't have tickets. You see when a Transperth officer gets on at the one station, they will scurry out the door at the next station. So you know that they're not paying. And you tell yourself, if I could just be like them, I will have more money. That's the lie. But you won't. You don't, because you're not trusting God. There is not more time. There is less time. There is definitely shame when you succumb to the lie. When you succumb to the temptation and believe the lie. As we look at that framework, I want us to go through each of those points and think about ourselves in our lives. And do we recognize the green lights? Do we recognize the amber lights? Do we recognize the red lights? It's actually been quite interesting for me going through this week, knowing that this was going to be my lesson, obviously since Tuesday morning at 5:30. Understanding that and looking at everything that came my way and saying to myself, red light, be careful. Amber light, watch out. Green light, you can do this. And I literally did that through this week. It was actually interesting. I challenge each one of you as you go through the week, when you feel your frustrations rising, you say amber light or yellow light or whatever you want to call it. I myself, a number of times after Tuesday, thought to myself, red light, don't go there. Don't go there. Yellow light, be careful what you're about to do. Green light, do this. It's good. Look for the lie. Look for the truth. The first thing that we read about in this passage is desire. But each one is tempted in verse 14 when he is drawn away from his own desire and enticed. And that word is the Greek word epithumeo, to greatly desire or to have something. To greatly desire to do or to have something. To greatly desire, to long for, to desire very much. That's how the Lunita resource translates that, or explains that, I should rather say. And most often in the New Testament, this word is used in a negative sense. In Romans chapter 7 and verse 8, but sin, taking opportunity by the commandment, produced in me all desire. Now the New King James Version actually says all manner of evil desire, if you're using a New King James Version like I do. This is This is one of a very minority of instances where I actually think the New King James Version does a disservice in the translation. Because you will see, if you do have a New King James Version, that all manner of evil phrase that they have inserted there is in italics. Because if you've got almost any other translation, in fact, even the King James Version, it doesn't insert that phrase. It just says, produced in me all desire. For apart from the law, sin was dead, in Romans chapter 7 and verse 8. So that word desire, to long for something, to long to do something, a real want to do something. In Galatians chapter 5 and verse 24, which is not up yet, there it is, we read, and those who are Christ's have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. So there's that word again. So again, negative sense. We've crucified the worldly desires. Everything that should, as Christians, be flashing red lights in our lives, hopefully we've crucified those desires in Christ. And in Colossians chapter 3 and verse 5, therefore put to death your members which are on earth, fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire. And again, that word evil is an added word. So your translation will say evil desire because it's actually kakos epithumea, which means evil desire. It's actually telling you that this desire that must be put to death is the evil desire. And the reason I'm really hammering that point home is because it's not always used in the negative sense. So there is a time, and hopefully as Christians this becomes more and more, when hopefully we are eagerly, earnestly, yearning, longing, really wanting to do good things. And those are good desires. For example, in Luke chapter 22 verse 15, Jesus is talking and he says to his disciples, with fervent desire, I have longed to have this feast with you. That was a good thing. It wasn't a bad thing. That was a good desire. That was a real longing to be with his disciples just before he was about to go and suffer. In Philippians chapter 1 verse 23, Paul says, I am hard pressed on every side, having a desire to depart and be with Christ, which is far better. So again, we see this same word, and that's a good desire. All of us should be longing to be with Jesus, longing for our eternal home, the promise that awaits us. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 17, but we, brethren, having been taken away from you for a short time in presence, not in heart, endeavored more eagerly to see your face with great desire. Again, a good thing. He wanted to be with the saints. He wanted to meet with the church in Thessalonica to encourage them. Interesting to read verse 18 of that passage, of that context, where Paul goes on to say, therefore we wanted to come to you, even I, Paul, time and again, but Satan hindered us. Satan put things in their way. You see, Satan is what turns good desire into bad desire, because he tells us little lies that appeal to our fleshly passions and our fleshly lusts, which brings us to the temptation or enticement. The Greek word here, theliazo, is to lure or to entice someone to sin. And it comes from that word that you see there, theliao, which is bait. You know what you use when you go fishing to get the fish to come to you? You put bait on the hook so that they come to the hook. You're luring them in. Hence, it's also you get fishing lures. It's that idea of you wanting the fish to come to you. So this word, this temptation or enticement, is that word. And it's only used in one other instance in the New Testament. In one other chapter, actually. It's used twice more in this chapter, 2 Peter chapter 2. So just to get the context of that, I encourage you please to turn there with me. So 2 Peter chapter 2, and we're going to read from verse 9 to 13. Then the Lord knows how to deliver the godly out of temptations, and to reserve the unjust under punishment for the day of judgment, and especially those who walk according to the flesh, in the lust of uncleanness and despise authority. They are presumptuous. This is those people now that are walking in this manner, that despise authority and are walking in the lust of the flesh and in uncleanness. They are presumptuous, self-willed. They are not afraid to speak evil of dignitaries, whereas angels who are greater in power and might do not bring a reviling accusation against them before the Lord. But these, like natural brute beasts, made to be caught and destroyed, speak evil of things they do not understand, and will utterly perish in their own corruption, and will receive the wages of unrighteousness as those who count it pleasure to carouse in the daytime. They are spots and blemishes, carousing in their own deceptions while they feast with you. So you can hear by the language that is being used here, Paul is not impressed. Oh, sorry, Peter. Let's try that again. Peter is not impressed by these people are living lives that are offensive, that are quite literally, physically offensive to a Christian way of life, to the way Christ has called us to live. And Peter doesn't mince his words, as Peter never really does, and quite openly talks about how he feels about these people. So that then leads us to verse 14, which says, having eyes full of adultery and that cannot cease from sin, enticing unstable souls. They have a heart trained in covetous practices and are accursed children. So these are people that are enticing others, living this life that is completely contrary to the way and the life that God has called us to, and not only doing it on them by themselves or on their own, they're encouraging other people. They're enticing them, saying, look how good we have it. Look how fun our life is. Come and live like we are living. Why are you worried about all this self-control rules nonsense? Come and be like we are being. Come and live like we are living. And the result of this is quite clear as Peter carries on in verse 15 and verse 16. They have forsaken the right way and gone astray, following the way of Balaam the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness, but he was rebuked for his iniquity. A dumb donkey speaking with a man's voice restrained the madness of the prophet. You see, Balaam had told himself a lie. He had thought to himself, I can become wealthy by helping this king out. If I help Balak out, I can become powerful and I can become wealthy. But that was a lie. That was a lie, straight from Satan. And you know what? He bought it. Excuse me carrying on with the earlier explaining of what it is to lure or use bait. But he fell for it hook, line, and sinker. He saw that lie. He wanted to believe that lie. And he went after that lie and became a prophet that was listening to a donkey, a dumb donkey, as Peter puts it, and ultimately perished, died. He believed the lie and he died. He had no wealth, no power, had no life, and worst of all, I'd say, he had no eternity. So that word is used once more in the same chapter, and that is in verse 18. For when they, this is speaking about these people, speak great swelling words of emptiness, in other words, they're lying, they allure through the lusts of the flesh, through lewdness, the ones who have actually escaped from those who live in error. They allure them, they entice them. So this temptation, this enticement, Satan throws out there because he knows what appeals to man, and he doesn't just throw it out there, he throws it out there with a bit of bait. He throws it out there with a bit of sweet-smelling, good-looking wrapping paper or food or something else that appeals to our physical senses. And he waits to see who will swallow the lie. And the result of all of that is found again in verse 22. But it has happened to them according to the true proverb, a dog returns to his own vomit, and a sow having washed to her wallowing in the mire. Balaam might have thought he was getting rich, but he ended up in his own vomit. He ended up in the same filth that he started. Those who succumb to the lie, who believe the lie, land up in their own vomit. So going back to the framework, that's the temptation, the allurement, the pull on the physical heartstrings, so to speak, the physical senses, maybe put it that way. But the next part is the lie that comes along. So there is the temptation, which is always followed with the truth or with the lie, depending on which way you're being pulled, toward God or toward a life without God, which is hell, which is eternal damnation. The truth or the lie. So in verse 16, we read that you will, verse 15, oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong chapter. That's why I can't find the verse. Let's go back to James. In verse 16, do not be deceived. Do not be deceived. In other words, you can be deceived. So you have a choice here. Be deceived, believe the lie, or do not be deceived, believe the truth. And the word there is planao, which is to cause someone to hold the wrong view and thus be mistaken. to cause someone to hold the wrong view. The lie, the intention of the lie is to cause you to believe something that's not true. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 13, but evil men and impostors will grow worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. Not only are they themselves deceived, believing the lie, being mistaken, holding to the wrong view, but they go and increase this effort. They go and further this propaganda. In Revelation chapter 2 and verse 20, nevertheless, I have a few things against you because you allow that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess, to teach and seduce. Interesting how that word in the English translation, because in the Greek it's the same word, but in the English translation here specifically used this example because of how the New King James translated it, seduce, and how that ties back to what we just read about being enticed, being allured, that same connotation. And she teaches and seduces my servants into committing sexual immorality and eating things sacrificed to idols. In other words, she lies to them. She tricks them. She causes them to have a wrong view. And they obviously are not paying heed to the lights that are flashing, red and yellow. Do not proceed. Do not go. This will not result in good things. And so we look at lastly in that framework is the result. And that comes from the Greek word apokevo, which is an extension of the word to give birth to. And it's used twice in the New Testament, and both times in the passage that Brother KJ just read for us. Right here. It is in fact only used in these 3 verses, and it's used twice. And I don't find it coincidental at all, in the sense that, one, we look at it being or stemming from, coming from this Greek word that means to give birth to, because it means to bring into existence. And so the result of believing the truth or the lie is either death, in James chapter 1 and verse 15, when desire has conceived, that's the word, when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin when it is fully grown, that's it there, that last bit there. Sin when it is fully grown brings forth death. That's the word. Brings forth death. So sin, believing the lie, ultimately brings forth death. And the other time it's used, it brings forth life. In verse 18, of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. You see, if you believe the lie, if you ignore the lights, ultimately what awaits is death, and that is the truth. But if you see the lie, if you pay attention to the lights, what awaits is life. Are you watching the lights? I've watched the lights this week, I can assure you. On the road, most definitely, but also in my life, probably more importantly. But definitely on the road as well. On the road as well. Everyone watching streaming, whoever hears this, red light, abstain from every form of evil. Don't go near it. Don't entertain it. Don't look at it. Don't touch it. Don't even consider it. See the red light and turn away. Abstain from all forms of evil. Test all things. Test all things. If you are unsure, look out for the lie. Look out for the truth. Align it with the word of God. Hold fast to what is good. Watch the lights. Watch the lights. Watch the light. Who is our light? Jesus Christ is our light. John chapter 8 and verse 12. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Watch the light. Watch Jesus Christ. James chapter 1 verse 17, we've just read it. Every good gift and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. God does not change. So what is your response to the police? And this was something else that was playing in my mind, especially on Tuesday, is how do I respond? Do I get cross with the police officer for pulling me over? Do I get angry with him for giving me a fine and not issuing me a warning? What is his job? What is his role? Did I break the law? Did I go through a red traffic light? How red is red? What is my reaction? What is my thought? What is my feeling towards that person that pulled me over? Was he in his car thinking, oh man, I can't wait to pull. I hope that cyclist is going through the red. Yes, he's going for it. Yes, I've got another one. I can't wait to pull him over. Was that what he was thinking? You know, to be fair, maybe that is what he was thinking, right? I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt. As irritated as what I am with him, he has a job to do. He's got a job to do. And that got me thinking, if he has a job to do, what is my response to my brethren who have a job to do with my soul? How do I respond to them? What do I tell them when they look out for me, perhaps ignoring a red light, perhaps ignoring a yellow light in my road to eternal life? How do I respond to that spiritual policeman called my brother? How do I react? Do I get irritated? Do I get frustrated? You're not the boss of me. Who made you my Jesus Christ? How do I respond to that brother who has a job to do? And I would like to give them even more of the benefit of the doubt than I gave that cop. Brethren, if a man is overtaken in trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one. It's a God-given job to each one of us to look out for each other. We are to be our brother's keepers. Considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. And we are to do it in a spirit of gentleness. If anyone thinks himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceives himself, but at least one examine his own work, and then he will have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another, for each one shall bear his own load. I really like this particular passage in terms of its instruction to us to help one another, because it's really an all-rounded passage without having to jump all over the place. Step number 1, look out for your brother. Step number 2, look out for your brother with love, with gentleness. Step number 3, your brother's choice is his own. Step number 4, make sure that you're on the right choice, because your choice is also your own. It's a really well-rounded, complete passage that you don't have to go around to find the whole idea of looking after one another and your own self. In Matthew chapter 18, verse 15 through 16, Jesus says, moreover, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. And if he hears you, you have gained your brother. But if he will not hear you, take with you 1 or 2 more, that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses the word may be established. God has given us a responsibility. 1, are we carrying out that responsibility? And 2, how are we responding when that responsibility is unfortunately carried out toward us? Do we recognize it as God answering our prayers when I hope that each one of us pray, God, keep me on the straight and narrow? How do you think God's going to do that if you don't want to listen to anybody that he sends to you? James chapter 5, verse 19 and 20. Brethren, if anyone among you wanders from the truth and someone turns him back, let him know that he who turns a sinner from the error of his ways will save a soul from death and cover over a multitude of sins. Matthew chapter 5, verse 23 and 24. If you bring your gift to the altar and remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go your way. First be reconciled to your brother. Let us love the policemen, the spiritual policemen in our lives, because they are our brothers. They are our sisters. We are all wanting to be in heaven together forever. Forever. How red is red? How red is red? Are you looking at your life and comparing it with God's word and making the right decisions, recognizing the lights? Let us look to Jesus. Let us look to his words. And let us remember that God wants what is right for us. He gives us rules. He gives us instructions because he loves us, not because he wants to be a God that just throws out rules for the sake of it. We've been running through on the Wednesday evening basic principles of the Bible, and the last few lessons have all been about worship, which Hashen's done an awesome job at presenting. I really actually enjoyed last Wednesday's one about music. I'd never heard it presented like that before. That's not just there because God didn't have anything better to do. God gives us the truth. Let's listen to his truth. Let's listen to his commands. Let's follow his commands. If you love me, you will do what I command. And let us respond to our brothers and sisters who are trying to keep us on the right track. And let us be the brother and sister that looks to keep our brethren on the right track, that as many of us as are humble and truthful enough to God can be in heaven with him one day. If you have not yet accepted the gospel, please, this is an opportunity for you to do that, to learn more, to study more, to maybe ask for the prayers of the congregation. All of these are opportunities for you now and at any time that you feel it. Please take up that. Watch the lights, but more importantly, watch the light, Jesus Christ, and look to obey and please him. Please will you stand as we sing together our final hymn, 407. Thank you.
Thanks